Well, I can see I want to make people know that we're in this beautiful hot spot. I'm here with the gorgeous Mike Morrissey, the fantastic Cody. I'll say Cody Power, right? Because I'm never quite sure for legal reasons if you have different. The fantastic Brian Meakin and the lovely Alva Skye. How do I pronounce it? Skye.
That's correct.
Beautiful. Now we had been talking, of course, as we always do before the cameras rolled. We're going to talk about just the way live music has changed over the decades. But firstly, I thought it'd be nice to start off with just the live gig that did it for you. That when you started out in life, the live gig that made you think, "Oh, I'd like to do this." Was there a gig like that for you, Mike?
Yeah, there was. There was more than one, actually. Yeah, it was a slow learner.
Right.
But, no, there was a good one, all right. There was a good one. And
You're going to reveal it to us, though.
In my era, then, you were talking about the Elvis and Cliff Richard type of stuff, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But was there a gig you can remember personally that you liked that just made you think, "Oh, I'd love to do that"?
Yeah, I was 7 years of age. And I was called up on the stage by a band one Easter Sunday, and I sang Bebop Balula, and I thought I was the greatest thing since chalk.
You egotistical bastard! You chose your own feckin' gig, Cody. I don't know if you I don't know if you've been at a gig that would have done that to you. I don't know, you're still quite a young man, so I don't know if there is that sort of a moment yet.
Not particularly. I don't know. Like,
right.
I saw I don't know. I know that something that was like a reassurance to me was I've seen these boys, the Hot Sprockets, now about 5 times from Dublin, from the north side, and they're just unreal at what they do. They're just blasting out rock and roll in today's day and age, and settling out and going on little tours of Europe and on, having a good time, having good tunes, and just doing it well.
That's a good plan. That's a damn good plan.
It's doable, isn't it? Like,
and your generation now, I mean, we have to, accept every generation generally looks back and reckons that was the greatest music, especially when you get over a certain age. I mean, do you just sort of love everything, or are you very critical of I don't know if you look backwards a lot and think, oh.
Yeah, I don't know. There's obviously gorgeous stuff in every generation, you know what I mean? You don't tend to remember the shittest stuff. Like, today you could easily go, "Oh man, pop music's so bad, dude." Like, I hate pop music nowadays. But like, pop music in the 90s, pop music in the early 2000s, it's always kind of terrible.
Sure.
Except maybe in the 60s, the Beatles and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's really good stuff. I love all the soul and all the late 60s.
Sure, yeah.
And particularly, and I wouldn't be too fond of when everything got very sequenced and electronic and stuff. Lots of gated reverb and stuff. Not the biggest fan. That sort of thing. But there's still some tunes that use that aesthetic, that are lovely.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I just think there is fantastic stuff all the way through, and it's just obviously taste, but also stuff is either big on soul or it's not. But Brian, you'd be a little bit more of a kind of would say a veteran of the live gig. Do you think there was a moment, or was it just a gradual thing with you? Because the whole family are musical. I don't know if you had that sort of road to Damascus thing of, ooh, this is me.
We were very, very country people. We weren't allowed. We weren't going out, and if we wanted to go,
right.
Anyway, and this is a very, very different time, living in this area.
And this is like you're going back and still in Cocoon and all that. So
My first, and even at television, we had two television stations. And my introduction to was in school when the music teacher gave us a Beatles album each. Firstly, and then visually was when I saw a clip of they had on RTE2 they used to have like a kids program on, say at 12 o'clock till 2.
Right.
And they had Billy Cox, which was one of Hendrix's last bass player.
Right.
And he was interviewing because they showed a clip of Star Spangled Banner at Woodstock to closing, and I was just absolutely just blown away. Like a black and white television.
Yeah.
I just thought.
But that's like transmission from outer space when that happens.
Yeah. It's just like, what are these noises? What are these sounds? I'm going to get a electric guitar and do this. That was it.
Because there's a generation, I'd be part of the generation that would, there's pivotal moments like Bowie doing Starman on Top of the Pops is one of those great moments that people refer to, and they talk about the Pistols' impact for another generation, and there is something fantastic when that lightning strike hits you that you realise that everything, so much is possible now that you can live that way. You could actually, that's magic that you can create. And did it take a long time after that you might know if the family were kind of onto you saying, oh yeah, we'll get you a guitar? It
just was a very slow burner anyway, because it was actually my younger brother who brought the first instrument into the house, and he was getting lessons and stuff like that, and I was going in and sneaking his guitar away, and I won't lie, I was seriously had dyslexia and stuff like that.
Right.
Kind of very, very difficult. Like holding on fingers for like 8 and 9 months, and where I was wanting to give it up loads of times, and it just kind of, just stuck at it, nicking his guitar, and then got a Spanish guitar on my own in a second-hand market or something. Never really took lessons or whatever, as you can well tell. But it just progressed then, and then the rest of the family started to follow suit, I suppose.
Do you think that was part of the, the difficult kind of learning made you just that bit more ambitious and determined? Because I genuinely think you're one of the best guitarists that I've ever met, and your natural ability to just turn a song in a second and to turn it up and down and all that. I mean,
I don't know, Paul, I don't know, because it's so long ago, but I do remember, I suppose because we had so little, and I just was really turned on by it, and I wanted to achieve. Yeah. And of course, as a young fella, you've got all that fantasy, because we were living real country. All that fantasy stuff about you get the chicks and you get some money and you get. So it was a lot. And it
all came true.
Well, yeah.
Well, half of it,
Chicks is your thing. Money is in monopoly.
You got chicks who need money. Close enough,
Right.
I don't know, Alva, for you, if there were, because you've had was it like, how many years now, 15 years of the hotspot, or?
8.
Oh, 8, it feels like,
9, maybe.
Well, okay, right, there you go. Yeah. But was it in your blood before then, were you kind of because it is a major kind of, more of a labour of love than any kind of great money spinning enterprise, was it something already in you that you had a love for this, or?
I would have been, I think myself and probably most of my generation always went to live gigs, but I would have grown up down the road from the Sportsman, so we were going in there at 15 to see the Phantom Orchestra.
15?
Yeah, and I used to bring my birth cert. And also I remember steps I'd been in the South County, and then we used to go into the Bagot Inn to see Brush Shields. My best friend was in love with the guitar player. So the Bagot Inn in the South County and the Sportsman, I was doing that at 15, so obviously we all loved live music, I think. And we all had a record collection, we'd be doing whatever. And then if I went to a house party, I'd be straight over to see what they had and start playing records. So I think it's just that love of music, maybe.
Right.
Although I didn't do anything with it. And I think I also loved the idea of a gig, and I can remember taking the bus out to the Mississippi Rooms. I didn't even know who was playing. Could have been Bree Harris for all I know.
Yeah.
And it was a whole excitement of a venue and the rock and roll and the lights. I just loved it,
I suppose everything is... naturally going to progress. I mean, in that, like, the way people live now is that they have a huge amount of good at home. Like, I mean, the internet offers them a million different things to do. You get, cheap as chip booze from Aldi or Lidl, and the drink driving rule would have brought in a certain amount of caution about just going out at night anyway. But that idea, for me, that Greystones has gone from what I remember, where you'd queue up for gigs on a weekend in the stables, or you'd go to the rugby club, or Cabanas, or later on Club Life, where it would just seem like the whole town was out every Friday and Saturday night, and some on Sunday and some even on Thursday. And it kind of slightly baffles me that it's sort of come to the point now where it's almost like dragging people out the door.
It's very hard to work to put places. Actually, people used to come into the old hotspot and say it reminded them of the stables, and other people would come in and say it reminded them of an old folk club from the 60s. So that was just the way it was. It just happened. I think it was just the intimacy of the cafe space.
Yeah.
But I mean, I reckon now that we all grew up with live music, and I think that the younger generation, anyone in their 20s, unless they're from a family that love music, have musicians in the family, they're not really bothered. And there's just this thing of getting ripped before you go out, and free music or whatever, and every time they buy a ticket is really to a festival or to the O2 or something, and I don't think there's anywhere in between. There's no concept of paying a tenner into something.
Well, it's the idea now that it's the experience, they call it, rather than being just a straight ahead gig, which obviously do still happen and they still get numbers in, but it's the idea that it is that sort of blockbuster mentality, that it's got to be an experience. So a festival obviously is one type of experience. The large, huge O2 show is another type of experience. I mean, for you, Cody, is the live thing a big part of your kind of life, or would it be more that you have this great ability to create music and pass it around? And I don't know what if you'd feel drawn to the live thing very often.
Well, like I'd love to be closer to the city centre or whatever. I was there recently, and it felt, I don't know, it was nice. It was Whelan's. There was like 5 or 6 acts on. It's tenner in, 12 year or something like that. Wyvern Lingo were playing, Cash Davey was playing, and it was lovely to see them. Yeah. Everyone was buzzing. It was great crack, and I was like, this shouldn't be once in a blue moon. Do you know what I mean? This should be on the reg. And I guess you could say the closest thing is somewhere like the Harbour Bar, where you're guaranteed that there's going to be someone jamming away, you know, pumping out some good tunes. And I know if I go there, I bump into like 5 or 6 people I know. I end up huddled together, maybe having a dance if possible. And that's lovely. So I don't know, I got it in my life, but I'd like it more. I don't know. A lot of my friends don't like feel the same. They'd be like, let's go to a club, let's drink a Jaeger bombs, let's listen to terrible music.
And would video games be big in your life? Because obviously that's taken over movies and music for revenue. So I don't know if you're currently in the Fortnite kind of craze, or whether any of that sort of gets you. Or
14, Paul.
I know, but I'm trying to figure like what it is that would be a kick for you. Like I don't know whether it is generally for you music, but when you're saying your friends don't, if there's
like fucking seeing good music, having a dance.
All right.
It's still the same, hasn't changed in that way. Like I don't know.
Right.
There should be. I didn't know that there. In my head, I've never thought that Greystones had this. These are talking about this like bustling music scene that existed.
Yeah.
I have a fucking clue. I remember growing up there, like there's nothing to do. I remember when the hotspot first opened, I was actually very happy because I could see people in Greystones playing music. It was actually lovely. Apparently, even in Kilcool, there was some sort of like thrash metal scene or something.
Yeah.
I could. Someone told me this. I was like, good.
There's a kind of a math rock scene, and you know when you think of Enemies and all that came out of this great. Kilcool's incredible for the amount of music that comes out of there.
Scout Den, didn't they?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And it'd be packed out. Like I went over to a few of them, and it'd be full house.
And even the Scout Den, if there's no outlet, then the kids can't go or learn or
sure.
learn the trade.
The will is there to go
Yeah.
out, but I think it's not always facilitated, or you know, like town's such a trek, man. Town is such a trek.
Yeah. And even the young think about how do I get home. Like I know I do all the time. Even when I'm going out, I'm thinking how do I get home from this. But I think everyone feels that way. I don't know if you had a period of time, Mike. You were in London. You've had a huge amount of experience in the music world over there and over here. But was there a time when you were just out at gigs a lot, or were you too busy
No, thank
working?
God I was always busy.
Right.
No, seriously.
Yeah.
But you talk about experiences. I mean, you stand in front of a 12-piece band and sing, and you hear this vump behind you, or sing with a 32-piece orchestra.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's like an orgasm.
Right.
You know,
I've seen you fall sometimes like that. All right, you do go weak at the knees. I've seen it.
What's going on behind you?
But when you go into actual gigs now, you would have had access in London to a huge amount of venues and a huge amount of artists. Given that you're a session musician, you're doing all these K-Tel albums, you're in the thick of it. Was it a kind of workman's holiday? Did you feel I should go and see lots of bands, or was it that you were just?
I was always too busy.
Right.
Which is a damn good complaint.
Yeah.
You know? But then again, you talk to fellow musicians in the studio, and you learn from them as well. You're always learning. You know? I mean, one of my favorite guitar players was Denny Wright, session musician, and he started off with Lonnie Donegan.
All right.
We're talking way back now.
And the Beatles recorded with him on their very first recording.
And I learned so much from him.
Right.
You know, chord structure, you know, everything.
But then the live thing, it wasn't, especially if you're a session musician, the live thing isn't necessarily your bread and butter. So it's not something that you're, because people usually when they're in a live scenario, they tend to tour and then they just get even deeper into that world that they're kind of meeting other bands, and this is the life you lead. Did that ever happen with you? I don't know whether you went on the road for a long time.
Oh, I did indeed. I did all that, the show band era here in Ireland. I mean, the roads were terrible then. They're a lot better now.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, you know, I was with a band in Galway, and to get to the north, if you were gigging in the north that night, you'd have to leave at 3 o'clock in the day.
Right.
And don't forget, you got to drive back too.
Sure, yeah.
You know, and you're getting into your digs about 7 o'clock in the morning.
Brian, your experience now over the last, I don't know how long you would say you've been sort of like gigging. Is it like 25 years? Is it?
Yeah, more.
Right.
A lot more, yeah.
Okay. And does it feel, I mean, because you've been consistent and you've always, played at a certain level, I mean, does it feel different to you? I don't know whether that you sort of feel it's a harder gig, a harder living now, or?
Yeah. I want to be very careful not being negative about it either, because I am.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, and we should say that the reason we're here is to say to people it's a joyful thing to be out to a live gig.
I'm finding that even I find one of the major problems is the people seem to want to hear the same stuff over and over again.
Right. Comfort blanket kind of feeling that it's just.
And if you try and do anything different, like we did a gig last Saturday night, a full-blown rock gig.
Right.
Advertised it as that, and the social media thing, Facebook, there was hundreds coming. On the night, we got 20 of what said we're coming. And they're in a Wicklow town.
Right.
Advertised it well and like that, and it's just like, those who came loved it. Yeah. Absolutely loved it.
Right.
But the regular crowd, you were probably driving out.
See, I think there's a wider picture here to the clicktivist thing, where people will click a like on just about anything, whether it's saving a panda or just if someone's had a baby, or you've organised a one-off special gig, on a beach, whatever it might be. Like I did a gig for Benny over in Kilcoona. He worked in Jokers, and he just needs a bit of help. So we showed his favourite film, Rocky, and hundreds of people hit the like and thought, this is great. Like, Benny's a lovely man, it's a lovely idea. Fantastic, definitely going kind of, hitting the going button and all that. And again, like, maybe 40 people turned up for what should have been 100 people. And it's just that feeling that, and nobody's being a bad person, they're genuinely saying, feeling it, that they'd like to do it, or they like the idea of it. But there's just a laziness now, where there's the pajama generation, where people are either mentally or literally in pajamas by 7 or 8 o'clock, mitching off life and just, getting their social scene online. And then that creates that worrying trend where you become isolated, that like the Japanese are struggling with it, where people just don't want to go out at all because they feel more and more comfortable online than they could ever hope to be. They're Dean Martin online, they have to be Jerry Lewis when they go out, and in the real world might have put on some weight, they mightn't look as good as they did 10 years ago, and it's just a very worrying trend, because there's nothing quite like going out and meeting, joining hands with the living, where you obviously know your friends, but even just meeting other people, who knows the kind of feedback that happens. And then also what's most important is the live gig situation is a live situation. It is, thrilling, it is electric, and you don't know just when it's going to lift, or like waves that comes at you, and that's what galls me. I just think people are missing out so hugely on, the pub culture may be suffering, but there's no reason for people not to take that moment to just go out and get involved. And because I'm sure your gigs are always, to me now, they're always just, you're always on it, and you're always hitting this sort of, just this glorious feeling of you love it, and you've got the, the kick from it. And I'm always sort of amazed when people just don't realise that's just right outside your door. It's just over there all the time. You can, do you find it, Alva, over the last 9 years or so, that has there been a shift? Or, you've moved to a bigger venue, and you've gotten, you'll get to put on great, Asia and people like that who can fill out a big room, but has it you noticed a kind of a shift in it, or has it always been?
I've had to shift for practical reasons.
All right.
Like I started off doing open mics and cabarets, and I love them, and I was also smaller space. I was part of the gig as well.
Right.
And then the attendance dropped off at open mics, and you were relying on people being on the open mic to bring
Sure, yeah.
It all dropped off, and I had to kind of let it go. We did it for a few years,
Yeah.
And then a space like this, you need more bums on seats to fill it. So I ended up having to drop a lot of the really eclectic stuff that I used to love doing, festive acts, mad Eastern European, some really, because I get 10 or 15 people.
Yeah.
So it's like I've had to let them go, and some of the younger bands, because it's grannies and aunties and whatever, no one else comes to them.
Sure.
And so mainly now will be mostly higher profile folk acts and really good tributes, without doing too many tributes, because I don't want to turn into a tribute venue.
Sure.
But I really miss having the eclectic music that I used to have. I really would love to be able to do that again. So,
And the thing that was important to point out here is that these are not expensive nights, as I said earlier. It's not like it's 50 quid to come into a venue. It's often free in places like Dan's and Lee's and all that. And then you've got venues like this to be 10 or 15 or 20, depending on the size of the act.
It's high end, you know what I mean? It's 10, 12, 14.
Sure, which is, compared to, the cost of living is very, very...
For a gorgeous night in an intimate setting, which is probably nicer than going to a bigger venue to see somebody like, say, Andy Irvine or Luke or whatever. It's actually nicer to see them in.
Well, the good thing about a small venue is you can slap the artist afterwards if you didn't like the gig.
And you get to meet them.
On your doorstep for us. I'm raising because I can never make the gigs because I'm always gigging myself. And that's what I really do for here. I pass the door and I see the thing and I go, can't go out, can't go there. I'd love to, and I won't go to Dublin. I'm just too country and old fashioned. I just don't want to do it.
Do you
Dublin stresses me out.
But do you see yourself, Cody, with your band won the Battle of the Bands here recently, tremendous band, and the new name is
Talk Like Dog.
Ba-boom. But it was Blush then, as so people will put the links in. But would you even think about like what you might make your living at, like if you stuck with music? I don't know if you have any kind of idea of well, it'll have to be live gigs to make money, or would it? I don't know if you have any. I don't know if you're thinking that way at all yet.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Just get good enough to consecutively get gigs regularly enough. I know, like I'm playing solo in Hard Bar now every like 3 weeks or a month, and they've seen we played at a Park Fest, but this little thing in Newtown. My man Joe, who does the bands, saw us and he's like, "Yeah, you're sick. We're gonna get you in." And I just really don't want to half-ass it. I always felt there was this gap when I was going out. I was younger and stuff. Funny enough, the Greystones Theatre and stuff. See bands like Redwoods and stuff.
Yeah.
Quite good, and there'd be bands supporting them stuff. And a lot of time they're just awful. They're just awful.
Yeah.
And growing up with exposure to music like the Nirvanas and all that crap, I really wanted something similar and big and chunky.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fat rock and roll, and there just wasn't that much. So I kind of started not wanting to be bothered to go out to gigs and like just be disappointed again. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I really don't want to be that disappointment.
Yeah.
To some other chap like me who maybe feels the same, wants to see something like that.
Right.
So I forget exactly the point I was going to make.
But it is of course like like love, like whether it be sex or music or like food, it is there's always a gamble that it won't be quite as good as you hoped it was, but the gamble's always worth it, because certainly in the case of live music, just going out, like having sex is always worth it. Having dinner is always worth it. Going into a gig is always worth it, because I go to a live comedy once a month. I know that some of the comedians are not going to be funny, but that's fine. Yeah. It's just it's the riff of being in the moment, the feeling of the possibility all the time, and then if you're very lucky, it just does go somewhere, and it goes somewhere that you cannot fake, and you cannot recreate in your home, or you can't describe really. It just happens in a room, and it's magical. So we're going to get you out to live gigs again, Mike, whether you like it or not. Okay. We'll make sure they're wheelchair accessible, and.
But I must say, the musicianship and the recording engineers of today are outstanding.
Yeah.
Really, compared to my day.
Sure.
Seriously.
Yeah. I know there's no doubt that and that's the thing. I think there's always going to be great musicians, but the real kick is when just a spark happens, and that can be through great musicians or crappy musicians, but they all get a hard on at the same time in the same place, and it all just lifts off into something beyond their imagination or beyond their natural abilities, and it goes somewhere else. I think that's really when it happens.
Some terrific musicians out there.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And unfortunate, they have to do I'm not going to say the word, and it starts with an S.
Shit.
Slug.
To make bread, they got to do that. Do
the shit?
Yeah.
Outrageous language from a man of your age and stature. Gee, and you running for mayor next year? I think that's over. That's done. So I will say, we'll put in the links. I know that I've always said I'm a big fan of yours, Brian, and I've been lucky enough to play with you. We've done, and like that. There we did the UFO gigs. You're playing Thin Lizzy, Live and Dangerous, one of the great live albums. You're doing the Electric Ladyland, the Jimi Hendrix album. And we did them well. We had great fun. There were a lot of energy in them. And yet, like that, even that, it's a struggle to get people. I remember we played about 4 or 5 gigs, and even then I was thinking, holy crap, like, what do people read? Do you want chips as well, or do you need to have your back massaged while the gig's on? Because it's just that bizarre generation who've sort of let it slip through their fingers that this is a moment. If you just give yourself over to it at all, it's just an unbelievable moment. Yeah.
Sorry, no,
go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'd nearly argue that there's nearly too much, man. Even today,
there's
this lad, Gizza from Wu-Tang, yeah?
All right.
He's playing in the Sugar Club, and that's going to be an absolute moment. And there's about 3 other gigs that sound unreal. They're all in probably Dublin. There's probably some lovely stuff happening.
Yeah.
But, sometimes I struggle to what should I actually go to. Sometimes there's too much going on.
And that's fine. I mean, I think that's a kind of a different problem almost, because if you've got like a city that's going to attract genuinely eclectic, and they can be underground, but underground with like thousands upon thousands of followers in every city. Yeah. That's a wonderful thing, and that'll always hopefully be there. But what I'm amazed about is just on a purely local level, where there's every second person I know plays an instrument or is an artist or whatever, and they genuinely would like to be involved, but we've just lost that sort of, we've fallen out of the habit. It's like we've forgotten how to read, or we've forgotten how to do this, because it just, for a long time it wasn't a venue. Before you came along, before the Whale reopened, there was long gaps of nothing. There was no nightclub, And I think people just become lazy about it, and then you get into like a whole different way of life. So it's almost like a re-education, like you're introducing yourself to, it's actually fun to cycle, or it's fun to swim, or whatever. It's fun to go to gigs.
I would love it to be at a stage where you just, we're all going to go see this person, yeah? And you just, without even having to let everyone know, you always kind of end up there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that when there's a bit of serendipity and everyone's just there.
Sure.
Oh, like, it's a disgrace I've never even seen yourself play. It sounds unreal. You're talking about you played the whole Thin Lizzy album live, you played the whole Jimi Hendrix.
And it was all about the drums really in both. I always felt that. I always thought people think the Hendrix thing's about the guitar, but it's really about the drums. Yeah.
I even like this is awesome, right? And it's
It's just because you're too busy online at home.
Ba-boom.
I'm too busy.
Well, we'll just. Oh yeah,
I
Brian.
just want to say, and here it is, another pitch. One of the problems I'm finding is that, say, you're trying to deliver a rock gig or a rock and roll gig, is that another thing that people have become is that it's all too loud.
Right.
And I can even have guys coming up to you. Even have guys coming up to you who would have been going to Roy Gallagher gigs and all at that age. And
right.
it's very loud, and you're going, you were 18 years of age in the National Stadium watching, proper live, hard-hitting rock and roll, and here you are standing in the thing. I know it can be a bit loud, but it's rock and roll.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, there is time. I'll sit with an acoustic guitar at another gig where it's in, and you need it to be a bit quiet. But it's a rock and roll gig, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
And I feel a lot of that problem is that everybody's getting and listening to music on systems where it's all
they're in control. It's like they're
compressed and all, and they're just getting used to hearing Led Zeppelin. True, but at this volume on your thing, where it's not like, oh Jesus, oh that hurts a bit. Oh, because it's supposed to be a little bit like that.
Yeah.
There's the ups and the peaks.
Well, it's like everything's smoothed out at home, and there's edges. There should be an edge.
You never get used to that. You want to sit here and have a cup of coffee, have a little chat while you play. What?
Well, Brian, you're blowing the foam off the cappuccinos, man. They're not cappuccinos anymore. They've just got a black coffee by the time you finish. By the time you finish the first number, the sugar's even gone out of the cup.
Anyway, that's over.
Speaking of Jimi Hendrix, we had a gig recently, and it wasn't a loud band, but it was a different idea behind it. And they did the sound check, and I know the audience here, and when it's really, really loud, they actually go from that room back in here to listen to it and watch it on the screen. So I just said to the sound guy, I said, it's too loud. People are going to get pissed off and come out here, because it's a very small venue. So he went up, and he was a bit pissed off, and he went up and he says to the guy, it was Noel, and he goes up and he says to the guy, it's too loud, man. He says, I'm going to go home. It's you or me, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And the guy said, what? And then he's like, and he checks the earplugs out.
Nice.
So he didn't know how loud it was. So that's another one.
Yeah, but you see, that's becoming an
But turn it up to 11 every time.
Because they've been taught to look after their hearing.
Yeah.
But to the extreme when they're not looking after the audience is hearing though, you know.
Yeah.
So. And also everybody's a snowflake now, which doesn't help.
Well, I don't wear earplugs and I'm still too loud.
But at least you don't wear them.
Well, thankfully your hearing's shot, so you're all right.
Because you think you're at this level, but you're actually at this level. You know what I mean?
I better turn this off now because I can see we're going up to 30 fucking minutes. Mike, you still like rock and roll, right?
Of course.
Yeah, you dirty bastard. I know you.